We are seeing a lot of shortages of accounting professionals.
I think the shortage is real.
That most of the accountants' marriages are arranged marriage, they are not love marriage. Talk of the town is artificial intelligence.
AI is not going to take away accounting jobs.
And accounting leaders by default are very shy.
Introvert looks at his own shoes and the extrovert looks at the other person's shoes, but they're both looking at the shoes.
Okay, hi everyone. So this is Sripal Jain. I'm a qualified chartered accountant and licensed CPA. And today we have none other than Hiren Modi, who's the partner in charge of EisnerAmper's, so one of the top and prominent CPA firms in the US. Welcome to the Fireside chat session, Hiren.
Thank you, Sripal. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you. So I'll straight away start by shooting questions. The first question obviously is about the career path. So we want to know the brief overview about your career journey and the milestones that brought you to your current position.
Sure. I started not as an accountant. I grew up in a town called Akola, which is in the middle of Maharashtra, close to Nagpur, and grew up in a family where my dad was a doctor, so a decision was made for me that I was going to do medicine, but when I was asked to cut an earthworm, it became clear that I was not going to be good at it, so the next decision was made for me, which was to send me to an engineering school, which I ended up going to a rural engineering school in middle of Maharashtra near Shirdi, where I spent about 3 months, only to realize that thermodynamics was not for me. I had a friend in Mumbai who was 2 years ahead of me, was doing his CA, so I asked him to send me the forms. I enrolled for the exam, not really hoping that I would ever do accounting. The goal was just to kind of like figure out to do some business in life, and so took that opportunity after leaving engineering school to actually go and work in my uncle's business for a few months while I was figuring out what to do. But along that, got into CA, got my CA done, had an opportunity during my articleship day to work for a really good practicing CA in Mumbai who was very good with professional standards. He was a central council member. That kind of like shaped early stage of my career. And after I finished it, I decided to go to San Francisco State for my master's and did master's in accounting. But kind of right as I was doing master's, I applied for a few firms and started with my firm called Herb Levy & Weiland. It was a local San Francisco based firm, and met my partner and mentor John Williamson during that process, and started as a staff in October of 2000 at Herb Levy & Weiland. And over next few years, I got a lot of mentorship from John, and we quite frankly became friends and really good. We had a great relationship that shaped my career. Got promoted to manager a few years later, and became a partner at Herb Levy & Weiland in 2010. But a lot of it was driven by really working closely with John and like learning from him. Until John passed away in 2021, I would say I'd probably talked to John more than anyone else in my life. And my wife doesn't take an exception to that. She's okay with it because she knows the relationship I shared with John. But became a partner at Herb Levy & Weiland in 2010. Herb Levy & Weiland established India office in 2006 that I founded here with John's support, and Harb Levin Weiland merged with EisnerAmper in 2012. That's when I took on the role, or the title as formal title as PIC for India, in addition to the founder title for India. Got elected to the executive committee for EisnerAmper by the vote of partners in 2017, and upon John's retirement and passing, untimely passing, took on the role of also being the PIC for San Francisco.
This is amazing journey, and the most interesting part is you started off as an intern doing articleship and going to the leadership level, and that's exactly my next question. It's like, how do we kind of grow to the leadership level? Because you started off as an intern. Now if someone wants to go to that leadership level, scaling up skills are very important. So what do you think, how can a person scale up in their career? Because this is one skill which is not being kind of taught a lot in the company. So how do you see that if you want to manage, say, because you are managing so many employees today, so how do you see that skill growing?
Yeah, I think personally for me, I've had the benefit of being able to work with extremely bright people, and connecting with them, whether I'm working with them, whether I'm working for them, or somehow they're in the network. I think there is, I've learned a lot from my mom. I've learned a lot from John. I've learned a lot from the clients that I work with, even in bad situations, and you learn skills. I remember giving a very bad answer to a client at one point of time, and that helped me develop certain skills, because after I delivered that bad news, I had to sit there and listen from that client for an hour. And so you develop a lot of these skills by experiences. And what has worked for me is to put myself out for as many experiences as I could in the 24-hour day that I have, and not walk away. To share a little story, initially when I joined as a staff, I wasn't assigned to work with John. John was the managing partner of the office, and he still did certain client service work. A lot of young staff were essentially scared to work directly with him. And so there was kind of like a water cooler chat among staff, which is, hey, like how we do in schools here, if there is a tough teacher, don't take that class. Tough 6 months getting used to him, but that's the best thing that happened to me, which is kind of like getting put in those circumstances, because over my career, I just learned 80% of my skills by being with him, and some of it were just human being skills, had nothing to do with accounting, nothing to do with business, but just those skills have made me a better human being, which has in turn helped me in my profession, in my leadership, to grow.
Thank you. That's an amazing answer, right? There are a lot of times when there's a huge problems coming in your career and you feel to quit, and that is the time you surpass that wave and become more stronger and stay with the company, and that's how you become stronger and you've stayed for a longer period of time in the company. Because these days there are a lot of people who lose patience, especially with Gen Z. Someone shouts and suddenly the person leaves the organization. You have somehow managed to overcome certain difficult phases, where the substance of the feedback is quite important than the tone of the feedback, and that's quite makes this answer very special. And then comes the third question. We are seeing a lot of shortages of accounting professionals. The field is facing huge problems. There are complaints that people are working 17 to 18 hours in the accounting industry, and there are also complaints that accounting is becoming quite boring these days. It is not as interesting what it was. So what are your thoughts and how are you making accounting interesting for your own employees and for the people whom would you want to hire in the future?
Yeah, so I think the shortage is real. So there is a talent shortage. That talent shortage in the Western world has been created by multiple things. Number one being, in the Western world there is an aging population. So we just haven't produced enough babies over the last 30-40 years to replace, and that has affected all sorts of professions, including accounting. To add to it, when Enron happened and when Arthur Andersen happened, we went to 150-hour regulation. That took some people away. And then when COVID happened, people who were in their early 60s, who would have otherwise worked till 67, 68, 69, they decided to retire early. So, that pushed the shortage to the next level. So there is a shortage. The business models have to change to account for that shortage. That is putting pressure on the remainder people to do the same amount of work that needs to be done. And it makes things tougher because now it becomes certain things are repetitive. But the boring part of the accounting world comes from also is over the years the accounting profession hasn't invested enough money in modernizing the processes, in modernizing the technology, because that needs capital infusion. And so with the advent of capital in public accounting, with private equity coming, which EisnerAmper was the first firm to do it in 2021, that's something that is changing how capital flows into the profession, how that money can be used to automate things, and that is going to take the mundane tasks away. But at an individual level, at the professional level, it's what you do, right? It's one thing for me to tell you to do a vouching on an audit or to enter a data into the tax return. A professional can make it interesting by really understanding the subject. So what I find is that a lot of times people who get bored with the accounting or the tax work is they're just trying to do the work and deliver as opposed to understanding the tax law, researching on a topic, reading. I do tell a lot of my team members, if you think of this profession as an 8 to 5 job, you are going to get bored in 3, 4, 5 years. Your day doesn't end at 6 o'clock when you go home. You should read the Journal of Accountancy. You should read what high court case came, what XYZ person was doing that the IRS disallowed, and they took it to the court and won, because those are all real life things that is going to help you interpret stuff, and those skills make things interesting. And if you can take those skills, you're going to be in a different league in the marketplace if you have those ability, not only in terms of who you work for, but how your clients view you.
I think that's an excellent answer. Learning is earning. That is what I would want to summarize this. It's very important that how you learn and how you take the career in that manner. And I think a very interesting, I would say, thought process is on private equity. And yesterday I was reading, in fact today only I was reading that Blackstone have also come, and there is an investment in Sit and Cooperman, and I know Eisner have been getting a lot of private equity investment. So what is making private equity to invest in accounting? Is there a thing that all the accounting firms are getting now slowly merged? All the smaller CPA accounting firms will get vanished and they get consolidated, and an Eisner kind of shark comes in and acquire all the smaller firms? Do you want to dictate the economy in that manner, or how is it?
No, I don't think that's how it is. Just to give a landscape of the US accounting firms, there's over 40,000 accounting firms in the US. If you take the top 100 CPA firms, and then you look at the next 100 and the next 200, after the first 300-400 firms, you're talking about real small sole proprietorship or two partner firms. And so those firms do not have the ability to do, say, what the Big Four is doing or what the top 20 firms are doing. So we're going through a transition of the business model of accounting firms across the spectrum. You're not going to see 40,000 firms merge into one shark or 5 sharks. Different models are going to evolve over time, but the underlying theme on all of this is that there is, in the Western world, there is a shortage of accountants. There is a lack of investment in technology, and the businesses are growing. So there is more demand, less supply, and that demand and the less supply can be met only in 2 ways. One is to create technologies that can make the work efficient, and second, by connecting the demographic dividend of countries like India and Philippines to the countries that need the help. Both of those needs capital. Technology, to build technology, you need capital. If you look at the accounting model or the business model of accounting firms, and say it's a 3-partner firm or a 4-partner firm, one partner may be 60 years old, one is 45, one is 50, and one is 35. The 60-year-old doesn't want to invest in building a $3 million technology that he's not going to see a return on. The 35-year-old is just starting his career. He cannot give 50% of his comp as an investment because he has to pay his mortgage. And so a firm like that cannot invest in technology to build for the future, to solve for the shortages, and hence the private capital markets are coming in saying, hey, we will provide the capital so that you can make that investment, and we don't look for a return for 3, 5, 7 years. So there is a runway to it, and if collectively we can do more, then everyone benefits. The idea is not 1 + 1 = 2. If 1 + 1 becomes 5, then everyone benefits. So different models are going to evolve. It's going to be good for the profession, and it's going to be good for everyone in the ecosystem if collectively some of these business models transform the business of accounting. A parallel that I like to draw is 50, 60 years ago, when you look at Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan, all of the wealth management and investment firms, they were all partnership models, and at some point of time they realized it doesn't work, and hence they moved on to a corporate format. And so accounting profession is going through that chain. It's a long tail. We're going to see a lot of transformation, and a lot of good things that is going to happen for the entire profession out of it.
So Hiren, because you said that they're all changing to corporate, now whenever a private equity comes in, I'm pretty much sure that we might see an IPO of Eisner also coming soon. Having said that, whenever a private equity comes in any of the US firm, either the outsourcing will happen more because they tend to control the margins, or second thing is the talent gets the heat because a private equity comes in, the culture goes for a toss because you have an investor sitting in the firm, right? So previously there was a partnership firm, there was no investor. So right now what the students are watching me today, and they have lot of times this question, sir, with so much private equity coming in the accounting industry, do we see a cultural change? Already we were working 13 to 14 hours. Now with investors coming in, will the culture change and the working hours goes up substantially? First piece. Second piece, when they go into the outsourcing model, so will India get more job opportunities? Because so that's the second question.
Yeah, so I would answer the second question first, right? So with or without private equity, the right shoring, and I call it right shoring and not outsourcing, because that's what I believe in. I think that was going to happen because just at a macro level, there's not enough people in the US. Okay, over the last 20 years, the business in US has grown drastically and the population has only increased by 10%. So we're not producing people to match the business needs. India has had the demographic dividend. China has not. And so from an accounting perspective, and I don't think this was planned in the 70s and 80s when we were born, but that's how it has come. India has a demographic dividend. We have a large English-speaking talent pool, and we have a very good education system as it relates to accounting programs. So those three combined has created this opportunity to connect the need in the US with the talent pool that we have here. With or without private equity, that was going to happen just because the need is there. What private equity enables is, it is now enabling people who would have sat on the sidelines because they don't know how to do it in India, or they don't have a connection, or they are risk averse to write a check, to make that first step. It's not easy, right? Like when in 2006, John gave me the first check to go to India and hire the 6 people, he had to be ready that it was all going to be waste, right? If things don't work. Private equity enables them because they've done this number of times before in other industry.
So they're basically experienced in scaling the operation.
Their experience in scaling in businesses globally. They've done it in manufacturing, they've done it in other services. So it pushes it ahead. But it was going to happen with or without private equity in the accounting profession because of the demand-supply issue. Now, what may not have happened is, somebody may have said, not India, we'll do South Africa, we'll do Philippines. I think with private equity, you have a better, flow in one direction or another. As it relates to culture, I don't think private equity, you can look at it from both ways, glass half empty or glass half full. Yes, there are certain things that private equity is going to demand, and it's going to make you better. And there are, for certain people, it may not be better because they're not used to that pace. They're not used to certain ways of doing things. No different than, you can go to a gym by yourself, or you can go to a gym with a trainer, and the trainer is going to make sure you do everything that is needed to be done to achieve your goals. So personally, I feel that, the private equity group that we work with have really enhanced our skills, and have brought the best out of me, which when I was in a, kind of like in a partnership model, maybe, I was not bringing the best out of me. I mean, we're here at Simandhar Education, and we're talking about education and tests. No different that I think when I was a student like all of you, I would go and study with friends because they were going to push me that extra hour to study and to get the best result possible. And I see private equity doing that with us as leaders of the firm. private equity doing that with us as partners and with the firm to get our best potential out of us in form of the financial results of the firm, in form of what we do collectively together.
I mean, I love that analogy of the gym, right? With a trainer, you're a completely different person. Without a trainer, you're very indisciplined. And that's how the private equity is. And that's a great news for people who are actually listening to this very insightful conversation, that there are huge job opportunities for US CPA, people who are pursuing CPA, because India is the biggest country right now. Now, immediately the question comes, now when one country gets a lot of attention, तो वो बोलते हैं कि नज़र लग जाती है उसको. So now that Donald Trump is coming in, how do you kind of see post-Trump policies? How Trump would, the way he have treated China, and do we see that India also getting their share of challenges from Trump?
I think, like keeping the politics out of it, I think that there is a very strong business partnership between US and India that has gotten directionally in the right direction. Right, so we may have small hiccups, but if I look at the next 25 years and the direction where US-India partnership is going, I think the direction is set. And I think the small hiccups are not going to really change the course of where the India-US partnership is going for the next 25 years, irrespective of a Republican or a Democratic administration that comes over the next 25 years.
So, Hiren, now that we know that India and US relationship is more stronger, one interesting conversation comes up is the Global Capability Center, GCC. Previously, we used to use words like outsourcing, then in-housing. Now we are telling that we are owning that particular capability center itself. So just for the audience and the people who are watching us, what is a global capability center? What is previously what we used to do? Why is it something new now? Previously also we used to do outsourcing. Now how is it different from outsourcing? Because why am I asking you this question is because you have set up a lot of CPA firms in India. I've seen Knight Baby and a lot of different firms being mentored under EisnerAmper. And through that experience, now how do you see this concept emerging of GCC? Because this GCC is being valued at $1 billion industry next 12 to 13 years. So from we went to outsourcing, in-housing, then again going to GCC. So how are all these terms different, if you want to just explain in one line?
Yeah, I think, as the industry has kind of like changed, you think of it like everything moving up the value chain. When 25 years ago some of this started, it was just like, hey, here is a call center that I want to open. It's one task out of my entire thing that I want to send, and it's not even relating to accounting, it's for something else, but that's one thing, and that's why the word outsourcing got coined. And then some more tasks gotten, and then something went off and things got brought in sourcing, and then the word captive came in. Hey, we're going to create our captive, and then the term came in. Hey, we're going to create a shared services thing because we have people in 2 locations working on it. At the end of the day, every term we're moving up on the value chain. And now we're using the word Global Capability Center, which is basically just saying, hey, we have global capabilities to service here, right? We want to do A to Z from here, starting with, signing off or drafting the engagement letter to getting a tax return partner ready or getting an audit file for partner ready review, or maybe even signing a tax return. And so we're kind of like moving up the value chain on what we can do. And I just expect that to keep going up as the time elapses, the knowledge base goes up, the experience goes up. At the end of the day, my experience has to be that if if you are supporting so many senior managers and directors in their firm, they should be able to do 100% of their things that a San Francisco person can do.
So, Hiren, is this so in-depth meaning for all of them who are working in all the companies that ownership is a very important element if you want to really enjoy the work? And that's where from outsourcing we went into completely capability center where people are owning that particular process itself. So why is it like that now? Students who are watching us again and they ask me this question is that in their first year, normally a lot of the students, even in your articles you have seen that we want finalization, we don't want to do BRS, we don't want to do this work, that work. So does ownership comes with the quality of the work? So do you see that the current Gen Z or the next alpha generation coming up will be very picky choosy about the quality of the work? And are we preparing for that, or do you want to follow the traditional strategy of giving them the vouching and all? It's a slow, steady process where they go for checking the financials.
No, I think the old way of slow, steady way is going away, right? Because your AI is going to do some of the stuff, automation is going to do. So we have to train people differently. Like I don't need, say on a tax return, I don't need somebody to spend hours doing $0 extensions, right? The automated tool should do it. The question is, okay, if some of those tasks are taken away and automated, how do we train? Like, a person who's coming from passing the CPA exam to what they need to do when the middle step is skipped, how do we train them in between so that when they hit that point, it's the same level of experience had they gone up the chain? And so that's what the firms have to do to figure out how to bridge that gap where your role ends and where the skills that the person needs. I view us not only as a firm that is providing employment, but also when the staff and the younger employees join us, we're also a university to them, right? Like we're the first couple of years are the foundation. We're teaching them. Whether they stay with us beyond 2, 3, 4 years is irrelevant. We're setting them up for life because you've given them the academic knowledge, the book knowledge. We're giving them the first set of practical knowledge. It could be as simple thing as, how to address a client on a phone. You're not going to learn in a textbook, but you're going to learn that with me on a phone call. And so we're imparting that knowledge, and we see as that, and so we have to change how we train our people if some of the tasks that previously we used to give to them gets replaced by technology tools. And so we have to change our training methods, how we bring people up to get them ready to do the tasks that we need them to do.
A very interesting proposition again is the talk of the town is artificial intelligence. With AI coming in, do you see that CPAs will not get job in EisnerAmper, or how is it? Like, how is Eisner trying to play in the game of technology? So are we hiring more freshers or are we reducing the freshers? How is it for the people who are watching us?
Yeah, like I think the general assessment is that, if previously, if we were going to hire, say, 100 accountants, we will probably hire now 80 accountants and 20 people with some sort of a technology skills, whether it is engineer, whether it is somebody with data analytics skills, it's whether somebody with AI skills, that change will happen. But at a macro level, AI is not going to take away accounting jobs. It's going to be companies and firms that do the right use of AI that is going to disrupt companies that do not invest in and use AI to succeed.
So I think that's a very interesting question. Is out of 180 people will be hired, so remaining 20 will still be there. It's just that they need to kind of evolve with technology. Along with technology, power of communication plays a very important role, and accounting leaders by default are very shy, is what many of them say. And when we had our last panel discussion, some of them said that most of the accountants' marriages are arranged marriage, they are not love marriage. So that's another interesting thought process. So how do you see the things where accountants come forward and communicate very fluently, very confidently? Because this is one skill most of the students are really frightened to go on the stage and talk fluently and communicate confidently.
Yeah, like I would say like one skill that is really important for this business is communication. You have to do whatever you need to do to get your communication skills to the next level. This is a people's business, and it's all about building relationships, whether it is internal or whether it is with clients. And so if you develop those skills, you could have a B minus accounting skill, but you're going to do very well if you have an A plus, communication skills, and you can build relationships across the spectrum. It is people's business. It is very interesting that our profession, which is mostly relies on relationship, has a disproportionate number of shy people and introvert people. I always joke, somebody told me 25 years ago how to differentiate introvert accountant from an external extrovert accountant is that an introvert looks at his own shoes and the extrovert looks at the other person's shoes, but they're both looking at the shoes. That's the only difference, but that's still a big difference in kind of like achieving what we need to achieve. So communication is very, very key, and if you can prepare the young workforce to be on top of communication. I tell a lot of our new staff members, right, like, I don't need you to get the answer to whoever sent you an email right away, but I need you to just say, hey, I'll get back to you tomorrow. I'm at a movie, I'll get back to you tomorrow. And it's a simple act that needs to happen, and that level of communication people should be able to do, and they will do well if they can master that art of communication.
It's an excellent answer. And next question comes is, sales is a very difficult job. And now comes an important question is, how do I get more clients? So people who want to set up their own firm in India, who want to open their own CPA practice, or who want to aspire to become like Hiren and open firms like Eisner, a piece of advice for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I think the piece of advice for entrepreneurs is like, number one, determine what your technical skill or knowledge is, right? Like, what is it that is core knowledge base for you, whether it is on a niche or whether it is on a particular service line. I think the days of journalists are gone, so it has to be either niche based or that is driving it. Once you know what those skill sets are for you, then you have to figure out how you're going to build a network in that space for you to be able to go and market to that group of people, to that group of clients, and need to have a full-fledged marketing strategy. It's not a one-time thing. If you're selling, it is an everyday thing, no matter what time zone you are in. It's an everyday thing. To me, sales comes naturally. That's how I got trained. And so whether I'm in India or whether I'm in San Francisco or New York, if there is a email or a text to me which says, hey, we want to talk to you about this service, or we have this prospect, my rule is that text or email or call has to be returned within 12 hours. The call may actually happen 6 days later, but it has to be returned in 12 hours. And the second rule is never try to sell them. It's just about, if it's a first call, it's about just building the relationship, and the work will follow.
I think building relationship, if you could give a couple of examples to our chartered accountants on how to build the relationship, and practical one example of how to grow the network, because networking is such an important skill set. So what do they do to grow the network? How do they get their first client?
Yeah, so let me talk about building the relationship first, and then we can talk about getting a client or growing a client, right? So building a relationship, I recently helped a firm set up their operations here. The referral had come to me from our CEO about a year and a half ago. And personally, I didn't have any relationship with them. We got introduced, had a nice phone call, and kind of like we connected well. Nothing happened for 6 months. Kept in touch, said hello a couple of times, and then we had a follow-up call where he wanted to learn more about India. Walked him through about India, and I said, look, do not make any decisions or do not think about anything until you come and I'll show you around. And that resonated with him, and he did take that chance, came over, and then, kind of like showed, and he now has convinced his partners and team to open up an office. They just opened, they just hired 15 people in Mumbai. They're starting their office next week, and so, but it's a relationship that got built over 18 months with really no expectation what is going to come out of it. It's just like, this is somebody who is on the same page as me, as this, and I want to build a relationship, kind of like what you have. There is no expectation that, we're going to hire from you or you're going to do something for us, but we go back and good things are going to happen from that relationship. So you just have to be at it that, I want to collect as many dots as possible in my life, connect as many dots as possible, and when I connect and collect, something good will happen.
It's an excellent answer again, connect and collect. So the speciality with whenever you're interviewing such big legends, the words they use are very efficient and very inspiring, to be honest. And so now I think we'll leave it up to the audience. I had an outstanding discussion with Hiren, and people who would want to ask questions here, please raise your hands, and Hiren is here. There are some of the students also, and from the people, if you have any questions, I think Hiren is here and you could kind of take up the Q&A as well.
Yeah, hi Hiren. You have mentioned that building network actually brings us the clients. I'm a practicing chartered accountant myself, and I was quite interested in CPA, and Simandhar has a huge reputation actually outside. I am sure you know. So being in India and getting the clients from US, I think there's some kind of like barrier regarding the networking, right?
Yeah, so I think, you have to just look in India. You don't even have to look outside. Do you think Narayan Murthy, when he created Infosys, said his all businesses in US and Europe? Do you think when he created Infosys, he said, I'm starting 10,000 rupees from my wife, loan money from my wife, how am I going to get clients from the US sitting here? He figured out a way to get the clients and, made a $10 billion firm here in India that employs 500,000 people or 1 million people. I think the accounting profession is on the same trajectory. So I don't think there's a barrier if you want to do it. The barrier is in your head as opposed to what could happen. Different pathways may lead people to different results. You have to figure out what your pathway is going to be. Different people may have different resources, right? You may have an ability to say, in my Indian practice, I'm earning X amount of money and my wife doesn't spend anything, and so I can deploy all of that in my business. And Sripal may say, all my money from, my business, Poonam wants to blow it up, and so, right? So different people may have different pathways, but you have our abilities, and you have to figure out what's going to work for you. But at the end of the day, there's going to be, if you want to do it, there's going to be some amount of effort, some amount of sweat, and some amount of risk you will have to take.
Networking also matter.
Creativity, networking, but let's just say if you were one of those shy guys who cannot network, you will partner with somebody. If you had the resources or friendship with somebody to partner who can do it for you, and this is not only from India, right? Like I am in a SF office, and when I was trying to build my practice, one of the hurdles that I ran into is I didn't grow up there, and so when I would go on pitches, I can talk accounting tax all the time, and people are wowed about it, but that's not the right place to start. When you're going and meeting somebody for the first time, you want to talk about, hey, where did you grow up? Somebody will say, I grew up in Minnesota, and I'm going to talk about Akola. Like nobody has heard about Akola, right? Like, what I'm going to talk about it. And so I had this business development guy who we had hired, and I partnered with him. He would go, he would talk about, hey, what the Vikings are doing, and I didn't have that much, following of American football or whatever. He will do that topic, talking 5-10 minutes, and then I'm going to wow with accounting and tax knowledge and walk out in a pair with a client. So you may not have that networking skills, but you can bring somebody in who can do it for you, who is a natural networker.
For the Indian practice, we are the two partners, and my partner is a very shy guy. He's an all-India ranker in CA, and he doesn't speak very much. The guy who parties and brings the clients, that is me actually you are explaining.
There you go.
The hidden gem.
I was like, there's a program called GMCS for chartered accountants, because chartered accountants are usually very shy and they don't even talk to girls and girls doesn't talk to boys. So this thing is happening.
So my own reading on it is the CA girls are extroverts and the guys are not.
You can say that.
Actually, in my marriage, it is reverse. Poonam is an introvert. Okay, yeah.
And one more thing I want to add agree to the point you have mentioned that holds a lot of value is, you have mentioned about the skill set, there's a gap. There's a gap because people might clear CPA and they might lack the skill set that is actually required in the ground reality in the micro level. That's a huge point. When I'm trying to hire staff, they're very good on paper, but when they're dealing with the clients or when they're doing the work properly by themselves, without much guidance from me, I face a lot of this issue that they don't really have that skill set. Let us be open.
Yeah, so those skill set traditionally has been built by the firms. Right, so the expectation shouldn't be that when somebody comes from college and they finish their CPA, that they will have all the skill sets to do the work. That responsibility, when you hire a fresh staff, that responsibility is on the firm to really take them where CPA ended to what is needed. And that landscape will change based on what technologies are coming in and where people need to start. So if we expect that once somebody has passed CPA, that they will be able to, do everything on day one, I think that's a wrong expectation.
Excellent answer, Hiren. Thank you so much.
So you give an example of Hiren Modi finding a channel to approach the US clients and Europe clients. So which channel would you recommend for me to approach clients from USA? Like, is it an online channel or offline channel? Second question is, so you also said I need to connect with someone who can develop the business for you. Let's say I want to connect with someone like you who is running a big shop and doing all the big things. So like, let's connect and give me some smaller work. So how do I do it?
We'll go jogging with you, sir.
Partying, going, but then that's a different thing. But what do you suggest?
Yeah, so again, I think, the offline or the online, right? Like, you have to figure out what your niche, your strategy would require. There's no one answer that is going to solve for everything. Let's just say you decide your skill set is in franchise accounting, and that's what you want to do, accounting for franchises. Let's take an example, owners of McDonald's, and you want to do that. You have to figure out, like, how do I get to one or two franchise owners of McDonald's who would trust me with accounting. I would not be the right guy for that because I have no experience or no connection in the franchisee business. I'm an investment fund guy, okay? And so you have to find that right thing for you, and maybe the McDonald's owners would want a handshake before they give you the work, in which case you would have to commit to, traveling 3-4 times a year, or maybe, McDonald's owners are somebody, because they're anyways doing everything remotely, that they don't mind doing a Zoom and giving it to work. So it may be a different answer for different people, and then finding the right kind of like this, call it a sales partner or business development partner is okay. Also, hey, do you need that physically there? Do you need that guy here? How does the revenue share happen between him or her and you here? And what is the equation? All of those answers could be very different based on what you want to do. At a very macro level, right? Like, if nothing else, can you connect with 5 professionals there, 10 professionals there? Do you have the ability and time to maybe attend one event, right? Like, say, again, taking the franchisee model, like there's a bunch of conferences for McDonald's franchisees that are going to, it costs $5,000 to go. Are you willing to spend that money, go there, start building that network? And do you have the patience? Because it's not going to come the first time you do it. It's going to take some time, but you have to be at it continuously. This was also true when we were trying to do, say, a San Francisco firm is trying to go into Vegas, or a Vegas firm is going to in New York. You really can't go there and start expecting that, hey, I came to New York for a week and suddenly I'm going to come back with a bag full of engagement letters. Takes time. And are you going to be at it and build it? Any new market that I go into where we don't have presence and we don't have people on the ground, by the time we're there for the 5th time, people start recognizing, hey, I see you all the time, I hear your name all the time. Any industry, new industry within San Francisco that we try to go into that we haven't previously done, same thing. Hey, now I've seen you 6th time at the event in this industry. Oh, you guys must be, big player in this now. Can we talk? So, versus something like, my industry is financial services, in the fund industry, like everyone knows us for 25 years. Somehow within 2 seconds you can find a connection, but that connection didn't happen day one. Like it's taken years and years to build those connections. So you have to figure out what is going to to work for you. Sometimes you will ask me and say, hey, can I go jogging for you? And my answer would be, look, I'm not the right guy to go because you're wasting time with me. I just don't have that small of a client that will come to you. And so instead of going jogging with me, go jogging with my pal Dan, who may be able to kind of like send something your way.
You might want to give me Dan's number then.
Absolutely. But what I would say is, if you really want to do this, you have to, you have to say to yourself, I'm going to leave my ego at home, and I will not shy away from asking like you do with me right now. You have to be ready to hear no for 99 times for a one yes.
Any platform that you would recommend to approach people online?
Of course, LinkedIn, but the best way is to try to get a warm introduction from somebody by building a network with something. And sometimes also invest in, like, you guys are all young, right? Like, you don't necessarily all have to connect with the CFO for immediate stuff. Like, there's a lot of, like, you can connect with a staff accountant somewhere and say, look, hey, I just want to build a network with you, or can we do a joint paper or something? 2-3 years from now, they're going to move up their career and they'll say, okay, my firm needs this, so there's multiple different ways to connect with different people. I mean, again, I think you're talking to me, but I have like 125 people working for EisnerAmper here in India. You should be connecting with all of those 125 people and saying, hey, because they see more than I see, and saying, hey, if there is somebody in your client base that is struggling with something, at least give me an opportunity to talk with them, right? I may not win the work. I may not even be qualified to win the work. But if I get an opportunity to talk to them, I'll make a connection and I'll learn something. And that's how you're going to build it. But those 125 people could be more valuable to you than what I am.
Send me on LinkedIn, so maybe you can connect me with Dan.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
See, I would just want to add basically, so if you want to kind of connect to any leader, it is very important to first to go on LinkedIn and do some homework or mutual connections or something. Like if I wanted to connect with Hiren, I remember 2 years back, Raj was ICI Dallas chapter president. I saw Raj in those mutual connections. I just went to Raj and I said, you know what, Hiren is there and all, and what is the best thing to approach? What does he do? So Raj put out an email. Hiren is ICI. He was there in SFO chapter. If you were there, and obviously we are a chartered accountant, so normally you will start your pitch like I'm a chartered accountant, and you relate with that with Hiren because he himself is a member of ICI. So this is a better kind of, like Hiren said, either getting direct on LinkedIn also. Before going on LinkedIn also, if you have a mutual connect, the trust comes in. And in the US, typically recommendations are taken very, very seriously, and they do not talk to anyone without recommendation, without referral. So they first tend to kind of trust others, like, do you know him and all? And once you come with a known person, the relationship kind of becomes very stronger, and because you have come with a trust, right? And trust is a very big factor. Even if I want to outsource any work to India or to you, I need to know first, are you a trust? Because understand that you're in another country. In our own country, we know how it happens, and this is out of country, so it's quite difficult to trust someone. So if it's through known or through referrals, right? Sometimes you can approach me, I can then kind of introduce, or Ravi is there, he can do it. So there are a lot of people whom you can connect, and then they become your stepping stone to.
Ravi is my connection.
I would just, Sripal, very, very good commentary that I would just add is like, it's not as like, where you're standing right now, it may feel like a big mountain to climb. It's not as of a big mountain to climb if you really get into it and kind of like just do it, like, every day, with, again, like no intention of kind of like, hey, that it's going to turn into something, and it will turn into something, but you just have to look at it and just do it.
Okay, and just one more thing to add on, do not be whenever you're pitching in for work, do not be desperate. Don't do frequent follow-ups. Don't. So if you have messaged, just wait. If they see and don't reply, also wait, because there are a lot of leaders who see the message, they will not reply. After 2-3 months, again message, again wait. After 12 months, you will get a reply, and that is a done deal. So that's what I have experienced. So you need to be really patient. You just can't push, because they always test your patience. So just be very careful there and do not overdo the things. I have seen in my experience, I messaged Reliance CFO. Everyone were laughing like, what are you doing on LinkedIn? Since 6 months he didn't reply. 7th month he messaged. Then next message I dropped it. Then I waited another 6 months. 12 months after I got a session in Geo Auditorium. So that is the level of patience normally is expected from entrepreneurs. So just be patient, you will get it. Yeah.
So my question comes from a slightly different context. So I'm kind of like you, but just mostly or not even a fraction of you. So we are also kind of an outsourcing firm, about 60 employees in Mohali. And so my question is that some firm, let's say somebody who is into this last 15-16 years, and they seem to have reached a saturation point that they are just a guy from India. You can say that your clients acknowledge you as a guy from India. Okay, this is his profile, this is his work, but you know that this client, if I get it right, I can just boom with him. Like if he's giving me 4 employees right now, he will just go, it can go to 40. So how do you break that ice from being a guy from India to being somebody that they trust, that they can put in more work, and they can actually, like, we have met those, they have met us, but still that breaking of the ice is pending?
I would say, like, that breaking of ice is pending. It's you who can make that change, and you really have to take those opportunities that you're getting to connect with them, to convert into a long-term relationship where they can connect with you. Like, for example, do you know, especially those decision makers who are controlling or who are the gatekeepers to it, like, do they feel like that, hey, Shubham is not a guy from India, but Shubham is part of my team? Like, do they feel it, that he is one of us? And the question is, how do you make them feel that Shubham is one of us? And things you can do, like if you're going and visiting them, to somehow figure out what connects them, and doing those things with them while they're there. If they're visiting here, again, finding them what is going to work, connect, and then throughout the year doing it, right? So I'll ask you a question, right? Like, if you have reached that saturation point, are you getting on calls with them all the time?
Not very often.
Okay, so that's the first red flag, right? Because if you're working with them, why are you not getting on calls with them, even if there's no work to talk, right? Because in a normal workplace, if the world was not divided on the GCC way or an outsourcing way, and let's say we were all in one location and working together, you wouldn't work for a whole year with only saying hi 3-4 times a year and not talking about it. You would grab a water and you'll have a water cooler chat for 2 minutes, or while going to the car you will have a talk, right? So finding ways to connect. If you have like information that, hey, they're from New York and the New York Giants just won the Super Bowl, taking that effort to picking up the phone and calling, hey, Giants won, congratulations. And what will happen is, when you do it for 3 times, the 4th time India wins the T20 World Cup, they will call you and they will wish you. And that's how we're going to build now. We hope we don't have to wait for 11 years to win next. I think you got to get into that level of relationship building to not feel like that it's just a guy from India. Like at our firm, we strive that our colleagues don't feel that we're just another 800 people from India. This is how we try to do it.
And it's a very, very amazing answer, right? Like, so the moment you kind of connect, have some weekly calls or a monthly calls and design your PPT and show how you have performed, and also, and in that one slider you can add the new value addition services which you have brought, because that is what you want, right? To show some additional services which you have, and he subscribes to that services.
I think to just add to the skills, like one of the things that I also, and Ravi and Preksha is here with us, like we all tell our staff is like, hey, when you're getting on a call with a client, your first conversation can't be, hey, 5 confirmations are missing in an audit. Like, you can't start with, FASB 15 and end with FASB 29, or start with Section 341 and end with, Section 16-day adjustment. It has to start with something, different and end with something different, and accounting or tax could be in between, and that's when things start changing. Sometimes even if they don't do it, you can do it. If there are 5 people on your team and you had a Diwali party, there's nothing stopping you from sharing that thing. Preksha recently did that. We had a Diwali party. She works on a client with me. The client is very, we've had a good relationship with the client now, so she sent a picture. Hey, here is your team that worked on your tax return, and we just celebrated our holiday party, just thought of sharing with you.
It's a brilliant idea. I think we should use Simandhar sales team. Where are you? Okay, so the next question comes up. Where is it?
From sales team, sir.
Sales team multitasking. They'll ask on multitasking, how can we handle 30 things together? I think that's their favorite question. Yeah, Ashwin.
I'm from the corporate relation team. I take care of the recruitments, and whatever the requirement comes up, we cater profiles and all. So, on the perspective of the students, I wanted to ask, we share profiles with a lot of fresher students to either EisnerAmper or other clients as well. So, the basic key requirement, what exactly is the fresher, what exactly is the hiring manager looks upon when they hire for any of the profile, taxation or audit or any as such?
Yeah, so I think when we're looking at the freshers, the few items on the basic profile that we're looking at it is communication skills. Is there a certain level of communications? Again, talking about the outsourcing to the GCC transition of the firms, we were never in the outsourcing world. So from the day one when we started, we said, fresher or not, everyone in our firm has to be able to pick up the phone and speak with the client. And so if somebody cannot have a conversation, it's end of the road for us on day one. Just doesn't work. And so communication is absolutely key. And so they're looking at it just from the resume itself. Our team will look at it, and I would look at it if somebody hasn't done a good job of drafting their resume and it has like grammatical errors and stuff, it's an indication that it's not even going to move forward. The second thing then we're going to look at is, like if they have done, education, is the education relevant to what we're looking at? Or if they have done some sort of internship or articleship, is it the right fit? Not necessarily the articleship experience doesn't matter because we're starting from zero again, but it will give us some idea, can we put them on a fast track or do we have to take them through the regular track? And then the third thing that we're going to look at it is there anything extra or different that is going to set them apart from everyone else, right? Like, I'm not going to worry too much about, say whether they took 3 attempts or 4 attempts, either on the CA or the CPA. We do, for example, in the US, we do look at the GPA just to weed out some absolutely candidates that we just don't want. So here we don't have in India we don't have a cutoff number below which we will not look at it, but we will take a look at it because it's going to tell, but it has to be a story. It's not a one point. The whole story has to either make sense or not make sense.
Thank you so much, sir.
I think we'll take one last question, and we are out of time. If anyone have any questions, you were having one.
I'm a career counselor at Simandhar Education. So I had a debate with one of these students' mother actually, who called 2 days prior, stating that what is a fresher can be offered in the market who has recently completed CPA with only BCom as a educational background. So I told it's 10 to 14 lakhs per annum. Then she was telling, then what about a combination which has BCom plus MBA? How much he can earn? I said it's the same, ma'am. So her question was, when my son is also an MBA graduate from a good college, why not the industry is offering more? So how do you?
Yeah, I think, and again, the whole MBAs going into the accounting profession is a creation of, the ecosystem that has been built in India. None of the MBA schools really prepare the students for a tax profession or the auditing profession here. And so at the base level, everyone is starting at the same level. It really doesn't matter. Now, they may have some skills, right? They may have picked up great communication skills in an MBA school that they may not have picked up in their accounting program. And so that may be different, but on the face, from a work experience perspective, there is nothing different. I think your response to the mother should be, if he has gone to an MBA school, he should be going and working for a hedge fund if he did MBA in finance, or if he has done an MBA in marketing, he should be marketing for Procter & Gamble or something like that. But if he's coming into the accounting, it's day one, same level playing field. But his MBA degree is going to help him down the road, because if it sets him up in communication, maybe he gets to manager a year early, maybe he gets to partner 3 years early. It's going to help him. It's not that it's not going to help him, but on day one, he doesn't have any tax knowledge. He's not going to pick up and do a tax return that the other guy may not be able to do. We've had, we've had people who we've hired from business school that have been our best tax accountants. I've had people who have not passed CA and they have been our best auditors, and everything in between. But on day one, they didn't have the knowledge, but they have it in themselves to do it, and whatever they had done helped them to progress faster. So if somebody, if a parent or the student themselves are only going to quantify by a starting salary, in long run, it's not going to work. I mean, I tell all my colleagues, and I'm a career person here, I've only prepared my resume once in my lifetime, that was 25 years ago, that in the short run, comp-wise, you can be upset with me, but in the long run, I can guarantee you that you would not have any complaints. But if you compare it from 1 year to another, there's so many different factors that go in, you have to look at the long-term trend. So that 10, 12, 14 is just a starting point, and it's more of a headline news, right? Like I will say, hey, I'm the highest payer because I'm going to the campus at St. Xavier's College and saying I'm offering 14, and my friend Vishnu is offering 12. That doesn't make me better than Vishnu. We're providing the same, level playing field. It's just that we have slightly different policies. Same person starting at both of those places could do extremely well or not, based on how their career progresses. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.